Hey everyone, this is Father Warner here. We are in Thursday of the fourth week of Lent, and our text today is taken from Exodus chapter 32, verses 7 to 14. The Gospel, which I will not be focusing on, is taken from John chapter 5, verse 31 to 37. Now, if you want a very scholarly approach to the Gospel of John, and this text requires a bit of a scholarly approach, do go to my YouTube channel. Even if you type Friday of the fourth or Thursday of the fourth week of Lent, John and Father Warner in the search engine, you will definitely find it. Now, I'm coming to today's text, which I wanted to focus on the first reading taken from Exodus chapter 32. And it's a very comical, in a sense, initially, a very comical text. I don't know whether you've ever heard or seen parents gloat over the success of a child. It's very interesting because they will never say our child, they'll generally say my son. The wife may say my daughter. But when that same child goofs up, does something really silly or stupid, the husband will say to the wife, your daughter. The wife will say to the husband, your son. Now, if you look at Exodus 32, chapter 7, it is as if God, like a parent, is fighting with Moses. Because see how the text opens, and I'm going to read it to you. The Lord said to Moses, go down at once, your people whom you have brought down from Egypt. Your people whom you have brought down from Egypt. So evidently, something has gone horribly wrong. Now, we know that God led his people out of Egypt. He did it out of his great love. He chose Moses as a leader. What was the response of the people of Israel? We know that they grumbled against God. I mean, whether it was water, whether it was food, whether it was the snakes. And the Hebrew text even tells us the sound, gurgusmos, the word grumble, gurgusmos. You can even hear that low, rumbling sound or grumbling against God. Now, in chapter 20, they have reached Mount Sinai. Remember, we are in chapter 32. In chapter 20, they have reached Mount Sinai. And God takes Moses up the mountain. Now, interestingly, Moses is up the mountain for 40 days. Okay, one more example of 40 days in scripture. And that 40 days spans from chapter 20 all the way down to chapter 31, 11 chapters. Read these 11 chapters and God is elaborating his law to the people. But while Moses is up, the people incite Aaron and they say, come on, where has Moses gone? We have been left alone. And they fashion that famous, or should I say, infamous gold calf that they worship. And our text today begins from there. Chapter 32, verse 7. God, seeing what they do, simply becomes wrathful. And the first thing he does is he tells Moses, your people, these are not even mine. And incidentally, God chose these to be his people. So the first thing that you realize is that, we tend to push the buttons of God, Many of us think that, we've got away this far, nothing's going to happen. Don't bet on that one. Don't bet on it. But I want to focus a little bit also on Moses, because this was a great opportunity. I mean, Moses realizing that, God tells Moses in this text, only you will be saved, you and your descendants will be saved. Now, I'm sure Moses too was fed up of these people, because we know that they grumbled against Moses. In Exodus chapter 17, verse 4, text we did last week, we know that Moses tells God, look, they are out to stone me. So yes, they grumbled against Moses, they grumbled against God, they wanted to stone Moses. And Moses could have seen an excellent way out. I don't have to deal with these ungrateful people. I'm out of here and God has given me a way out. But Moses didn't do that. You see, a good leader does not abandon his people. And Moses did not abandon them. In fact, Moses in a way, plays on God's ego. And I'm using that very poetically. God doesn't have an ego, but he plays on God's ego. He uses his every cunning skill to stop God from executing destruction. And what does he say to God? He says, look, he says, think what the Egyptians are going to say. They're going to say, you tricked your people. You brought them out into the wilderness to put them to death. Now, we know it worked because God's anger subsided. Now, Moses, in that sense, knew the SOP when it came to God. SOP, standard operating procedure. He knew the heart of God. The heart of God was mercy and kindness and forgiveness. Now, the scripture of today tells us that God changed his mind. And you might just read this and say, oh, he changed his mind. So God might, it's no big deal. He changes his mind. He has mercy. But read the same text in its Hebrew translation, because the book of Exodus was written in Hebrew. And the word there is Naham. So God changed his mind is written as Naham. Naham doesn't really translate as God changed his mind. It translates as God was sorry. To be sorry, in fact, some scholars even say the word is repented. And that itself should reveal to you the heart of God. God repented that he was angry with his people. You remember in the book of Genesis, after the great flood of Noah, he said, never again will I destroy the earth. And he kept his promise, but he was about to destroy his people, not the earth, but his people. But he changed his mind. God feels sorry for us. God repents sometimes, that he even gets mad at us. The question we need to ask ourselves is, do we feel sorry for what we have done? Are we sorry for what we have done? And that is what the season of Lent draws us to. I want to thank you for joining me. To all of you who have subscribed to this channel, and if you haven't do that, do leave your comments. I sat up last night till almost 1 o'clock early this morning, and I read every single comment. Some I even responded to. Thank you. Many of you express, and what I saw across the board was that you appreciate the simplicity with which these scripture reflections, the approach that I take. And I try to keep it as simple, positive, helpful, but most of all, that you may grow spiritually. I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.